How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000, and take a look at the northern Atlantic water vapor imagery. Right now, we do have several disturbances we're keeping a close eye on. We, of course, have Hurricane Nigel, but it likely will move out to sea at this point, as the remnants of Lee should help contribute to enhance the westerly winds to steer this out to sea. However, still watch out for the possibility of a high rip current risk as well as rough surf right up along the east coast, even though it's hundreds of miles away, because Hurricane Nigel is no slouch. It's still a pretty powerful storm that's able to bring a higher rip current risk along the coast. So at least be aware of that. But outside of that, it should be able to move out to sea, not directly impacting land in any way, shape, or form, which is certainly good news. But take a look at our next few tropical waves we're taking a look at coming off the West African coast. Now, this could be interesting because now we have National Hurricane Center giving a high possibility of a tropical wave developing into at least a tropical depression and likely tropical storm Ophelia. We do see right now there's quite a bit of convection going on over this area. It's expected to move very slowly over the next several days, and it won't intensify rapidly thanks to the amount of dry air there is, as well as the fact that you could probably tell that there's a very elongated envelope of moisture, and that necessarily isn't very good for tropical cyclone development, because if the envelope of moisture is a little bit too elongated, then that prevents one area of a low pressure to converge all the energy and vorticity towards one area, because we have multiple areas of convective activity trying to compete for the same limited amount of energy that's over this area, and we're seeing just a large area of convective activity. We're going to need to see this envelope become a little bit smaller for me to have more confident to say that we're going to see a tropical storm in the main development region in the near future. But for right now, this is a good amount of convective activity, and this could potentially lead to something in the more long-term future. And another thing I want to point out is this low pressure system that's now moving through New England at this point. And the reason why I want to point this out, not necessarily because this specific trough could potentially develop into tropical entity, but it's what's behind it, which is something we're definitely going to need to keep in mind, because the computer models have been very aggressive in developing a tropical storm just off the southeast coast, and I'll get to more detail in a little bit, but just know that there is that possibility just off the southeast coast, potentially in the near future. In terms of the chance, the National Hurricane Center is giving these next two tropical disturbances in developing. So currently, it's a low chance for this disturbance, as expected to develop just off the southeast coast, 30% chance. However, I expect this chance to rise to a medium chance, and computer models have been very persistent, very aggressive in developing a tropical storm just off the southeast coast. And I eventually do believe National Hurricane Center will begin to shift its forecast where it does raise the chance that we're going to see a tropical storm just off the southeast coast, because the computer models been a little bit too confident for the chance to be this low, like what the National Hurricane Center is stating at this point. So as of right now, I'd expect a medium chance of tropical cyclone development just off the southeast coast, so throughout the Carolinas as well as Georgia and the coast of Florida. You need to definitely keep tabs on this over the next several days. And taking a look at this disturbance, it's a high 70% chance within the next 7 days, and I do expect this chance to rise once we approach the next 2 to 3 days, when the disturbance will actually come off the West African coast. That's when we should see a chance rise if the National Hurricane Center continues to see feedback from the computer models that the conditions should be favorable enough for tropical cyclone development. The chance should only rise the more and more we get into the future. So I do believe we're going to see tropical storm Ophelia in the main development region. So now let's take a look at the relative humidity forecast from the latest run of the European model. So here's Nigel. Of course, this low pressure system will contribute to a weakness in ridging and be able to shift the wind direction from more of a southwesterly direction for this to eventually move out to sea. It should still be a relatively strong storm, but not directly impacting anybody. But now let's focus on these next few disturbances. So this tropical wave that's over the main development region as of right now. We do see that it lingers over the same area for quite some time, but but like I said, the area is a little bit too elongated, so it might not have a great possibility of developing. But this next tropical wave is the one where we're definitely gonna need to keep tabs on. It should come off the coast right around the Wednesday, September 20th time frame, and it will have a decent amount of convection surrounding the center circulation, as well as the fact that it's going to be relatively consolidated, relatively small, and small enough for the pressure to lower enough along surface for this to potentially reach tropical storm status as it moves into the main development region. However, a big thing that I think could inhibit this storm from rapidly intensifying is the fact that it's going to deal with stronger wind shear. And what I mean by that is that the lower level winds are going to move a little bit too fast compared to the upper level winds. And what we see is a displaced center of circulation from the area of convective activity, because we do see initially the low pressure system is embedded in all this convective activity for the most part and we see that there's not really any area that's completely lopsided, where we see an area that's mainly dry, because we see on all areas of the storm it's at least having a decent amount of convective activity. But that changes once this continues ahead further eastward, because like I said, the lower level winds should move a bit faster than the upper level winds, which means that the lower level center will move a bit faster than the convective activity that's located in the upper levels, which means that the low is displaced. We see more dry air entrain the center circulation, and that creates more hostile conditions for intensification, because if we were to see a lopsided storm like this, then that means that the lift associated with this low will be disrupted by the fact that the energy will be displaced, because we have the low level center surrounded by stable, very dry air, which of course increases the pressure along the surface, and it's pretty much displaced from where the lift is going on, which is over this area of convective activity, which means that creates a pretty big displacement for the winds to not be as strong and the storm to overall be weaker, and this deals with a lot more dry air as a result. If we were to take a look at the soundings, we do see that okay, it does seem to be working right now, but you see that this storm will struggle thanks to the drier air that would entrain this storm if this low level center were to move a bit faster than the convective activity. The good news is that, at least for this disturbance, whether it develops into a tropical storm or not, the European model in the long-term future wants to take this out to sea, but the forecast is far from certain at this time when it comes to the trajectory, because we could easily see between now and Monday of next week a stronger amount of ridging than anticipated, and that would steer the storm further southward to where it could bring impacts to the Caribbean. So definitely take the trajectory forecast with a grain of salt, but at least for the near future, you should expect a tropical storm over the main development region. It seems like the European model is confident in that. We see the pressure drop as low as 1,003 millibars, which is around tropical storm status, but beyond this point, it definitely becomes uncertain. We're going to need to see how strong the upper level winds will be, how much stronger the lower level winds will be. In fact, if we were to take a look at the wind shear forecast, right around the area of 200 millibars. Okay, let me fix this up real quick. When taking a look at the upper level winds, we do see that it might deal with a little bit of wind shear initially, where the winds in the upper levels would be a bit strong, and then would definitely experience a stronger amount of wind shear once this heads further northward, which is part of the reason why as well that the western half of this storm would be a little bit drier, because the upper level winds would face more from an easterly direction, which would push the convective activity in the upper levels a little bit further eastward, making the low level center a little bit displaced from where the convective activity is, because the upper level winds in this case would move a little bit faster from the east than the lower level winds. So we'll see a little bit more dry air entrain the center circulation. So we're definitely going to need to keep in mind, but if this were to take a track further southward, it could potentially avoid the wind shear. It could avoid the possibility of the moisture being displaced from the center of circulation. So we're definitely going to need to pay close attention to the trajectory forecast. Let's take a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly. We do see that the main steering flow should be the Bermuda Azores Ridge, but there is the possibility that this low pressure system right here could move far south enough to be able to steer this northward, which would definitely be the best case scenario. We don't want to see this storm take a track westward to where the Caribbean gets involved, or potentially the United States. Hopefully a trough digs in, steers us out to sea, but that still has yet to be seen, and I'll keep you guys updated if we see a stronger amount of troughing over the next few days in the northern Atlantic, because this area of troughing could be key in potentially steering this tropical wave away from the Caribbean. The GFS model is even less confident we're going to see tropical cyclone development over the main development region, and the primary reason why is because, for one thing, is that the area of moisture is a bit too elongated. We do see the dry air begin to entrain the center of circulation. There is a low-level center that does develop, but we do see the area of moisture too large for the energy to focus in on one area, and just too much going on. It needs to be a little bit smaller for the energy to be a little bit more consolidated and organized for a tropical storm to form. And we're not seeing that right here. We're definitely going to keep tabs on this, see if the GFS model keeps this forecast up. But I'll keep you guys updated over the next several days. I'll still expect a tropical storm to develop over the main development region. However, it might not be that powerful in the very long-term future. The GFS model does, in fact, bring a pretty powerful hurricane close to the Caribbean, but this is so far out that you definitely don't want to take it at all seriously for the Caribbean. But at the very least, you could expect a tropical storm in the main development region. I'm just having doubts whether or not it could potentially rapidly intensify with the stronger wind shear we're seeing that could displace the moisture from the center circulation, as well as the fact that the area of moisture might be a little bit too large for the energy to focus in on one area. However, shifting our focus a further closer to home, right around the United States. So but first, for this disturbance, the Caribbean, you at least need to keep tabs on this. I will say a tropical storm is likely, and depending on how much ridging there could be, there is that possibility it could move south to impact you guys. So definitely keep tabs, pay close attention to my weather updates over the next few days for latest and most reliable information. But moving closer to the United States, there is that possibility of a tropical storm, of course, and it's due to the remnants of this low that's currently moving through New England. We're going to see this moisture enhance. There's going to be a ridge that's going to bring a little bit more moisture from South America up towards the area of the Bahamas, and there could be just enough convection and instability as well for the possibility of a tropical or subtropical storm developing just off the Carolinas. And the reason why I do believe that there is a possibility we could see this become subtropical is just taking a look at the overall form of this storm. We do see it's very reminiscent of a typical mid-latitude trough we see move through the westerly winds, where we see the dry air filter in on the southwestern side with the moisture all over the northern side, as well as a small area on the western side. Very reminiscent of just a regular mid-latitude low. So I do believe that it will definitely need some subtropical characteristics for this to develop into a tropical storm. It'll need instability because if we were to take a look at other factors, the factors certainly wouldn't be very favorable for tropical storm development. There is a lot of dry air entraining the center of circulation, and if we were to take a look at the upper level winds, it wouldn't be favorable for tropical cyclone development. The upper level winds are very strong. However, if it's able to have enough instability surrounding it, as well as the fact and if we were to see the storm move in the same direction as these strong upper level winds, then we could still see the wind speed and the strength of this storm be very reminiscent of a tropical storm, because it'll at least develop somewhat of a warm enough core, because it'll still develop over temperatures, water temperatures well over 80 degrees, while also attaining subtropical characteristics with baroclinic instability getting involved in strengthening the warm core of this storm system. And this is a pretty powerful storm once it makes landfall right around the Carolinas, hovering around 997 millibars. That could certainly be enough for coastal flooding, but my bigger concern would be flooding, just regular river and rain flooding throughout the mid-Atlantic, because we see the moisture even extends as far north as New England. So whether this is subtropical or not, you definitely need to pay close attention all throughout the East Coast, because this could potentially be a heavy rain threat, as well as bringing gusty winds and coastal flooding right around the Carolinas. This could be a bigger threat than you'd think for a tropical storm that's going to be relatively short-lived. Of course, track forecast will play a key role. If it's a little bit too close to the coast and doesn't have a lot of time over water, then of course it's less likely we're going to see a tropical storm. But if it's over water a little bit more, we do see as much instability as the GFS model is currently expecting, and we see that there's going to be a lot of convective activity surrounding it, then a tropical storm would certainly be more likely. I'm giving it a moderate chance at this point, so the Carolinas definitely watch out. But whether there's a tropical storm, a subtropical storm, or just a regular low, you need to watch out for that possibility of enhanced rainfall from this low pressure system. The European model isn't as confident we're going to see a tropical storm just off the southeast coast, because it expects the moisture to be a little bit too elongated to the point where the energy can't focus in on one area. We see that sort of two entities develop out of this area of moisture. One entity brings a lot of the moisture further northward, while the main low pressure system has a decent amount of moisture, but not really enough for the pressure to lower as along the surface as much, and for this to be as strong as the GFS model. And it's a little bit closer to the coast, so it might not have enough time over water to develop as much as what the GFS model is forecasting. Part of the reason why this moisture is in place is, like I said, due to the strong wind shear. So depending on how strong the wind shear will be, how much instability there will be, those are two big roles with this storm. Because if the wind shear is a little bit too strong, then we might not see the energy be focused in enough for this to develop into a tropical storm. But I'll keep you guys updated. Here are what the GFS ensemble members are stating, and we do see a decent amount of ensemble members wanting to develop a tropical storm and bring a landfall mostly towards North Carolina. So you want to be aware of that possibility. Make sure to prepare if you lived in potentially coastal, or not prepare, but at least stay on high alert and be prepared to get prepared right up along the Carolinas, because there is that possibility of a tropical storm, and the heavy rain could extend further northward as well. And for this other disturbance, potentially tropical storm Ophelia, the good news is that the current ensemble members want to take this northward, but take this with a grain of salt as of right now, because we could see the forecast change since this is very much in the long-term future. But that's it for now, guys. Thank you guys for watching, and make sure to subscribe for more weather-related content, and I hope you guys all have a great day.